That was the off season.
Short, but good. How about you?
No complaints. No complaints. Do you get even though you can't watch captain's practices or what have you, do you have a sense of how those have gone up until now?
The players have said they've gone well, and we're allowed to have 2 hours on the ice a week, so that's helpful as well. So we certainly don't have any complaints. I don't think you really know until you get in a game, so we're really looking forward to Sunday. But certainly every comment we've heard from the players and certainly the returning guys are that it's going very well.
You've scouted these guys individually on other teams. How long does it take you as a head coach to figure out what sort of chemistry you have as a group?
I think you're always doing that. Like, I don't think you ever have that. I think you'll see some things early, and then some things will develop, but you're never quite there, and things will change. Chemistry will change during the year as well. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. That's something that we evaluate on a constant basis.
Earlier this summer, you said whoever was the next captain, you didn't want them to necessarily be like David Glenn, but kind of have their own style. Do you know what style Goodwin may have?
Not yet. We're curious, but I think that's really important. I think David Glenn is just such a great captain, in so many ways, and he's a unique personality. He doesn't have to say much, but when he does, people really listen. I think he's a unique guy, and I think David is as well, but in a different way. I think people might have the impression that David has the players' respect because of so much that he does off the ice. I'm sure that's part of it, but I'm also certain that the reason that he gets the votes is the respect that he has from the team in terms of his hockey IQ, and also the way he's developed into a guy who wins battles. That's something that I don't think he did as well when he was a freshman, and he's been one of our top as of last year. I think the team really respects that.
You said this morning that James Robinson, even though he played only one shift last season, became an ultimate captain because of off-ice stuff. Can you elaborate a little bit about what he did off the ice and made the guys admire him so much?
Actually, no, I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. We were all very surprised. I mean, the coaching staff has a lot of respect for him, how he deals with us, but it's pretty unique, I think, that a guy that's played one shift all season gets voted to be a captain. So I'm not sure. I know that he has a great work ethic, and even though he wasn't able to skate, that he worked extremely hard off the ice, but I think it has to be a lot more than that. So just quite honestly, that would be a question more for the guys than me, because I think it was stuff that, that the coaching staff didn't see.
What goes into the process of the captain? Is it purely a vote of the players? Do coaches, staff have any input at all?
Yeah, it's not a vote it's not a vote of the players, but we take the players' feelings and input very seriously. But if the coaching staff doesn't agree with it, it's not going to happen. That being said, we take what the players say and their suggestions very seriously. So there has been times in this staff's career that we may have made changes on our own. This wasn't one of them.
A couple of years ago, you had what you called the identity line with Glenn, Brooks, and Blake, and that kind of served the purpose of what you wanted the team to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something like that still? Is it evolving?
It's evolving, and I think our identity, although we always want Penn State hockey to be the same, I think the way it gets done is going to be slightly different. I think that you will see more players that have a little more ability to read the ice and to react rather than playing in simple straight lines. I'm not sure that's going to equate to more wins at the moment, but I think you're going to see that. That being said, we also have line that we really hope that embodies everything that's brought us to the success that we've had at this point and has allowed us to overachieve. We don't know yet, to answer the question about chemistry, we don't know yet what that's going to be, but I think if you look at guys like Ricky DeRosa and Jimmy Pucks, James Robinson, I think just from the little amount of time we've observed them, I think Nikita Pavlichev is a guy that could fit there really well. I'm hoping that that's a line that you would sort of look at and recognize from what we've had in the past.
What has some of your impressions been so far, Nikita?
You know what? Impressive. Like, obviously, the number one, it's very hard to miss him, but I think from where we've watched him in the past individually, that I think he's starting to come into his own. He's I think that guys that are 6'7" are going to take a little bit longer to grow into their body than other guys. And he's a guy that works extremely hard off the ice, knows that, works hard at his game, and he's looking pretty comfortable. I think we've been pleasantly surprised at how I think he's improved his stability on the ice. And I think that's only going to get better with someone who's 6'7" and still growing into their body.
How different is it evaluating the goalies this year from last year? Because it's quite a different situation.
It's a much different situation, but as far as how this program's always done it is we haven't had anything in mind in terms of style, that we want this style of goaltender. In the goaltending position, we really make it clear that we evaluate on numbers, on wins and losses, your goals against, your save percentage, and then your work ethic and commitment and how you are as a teammate and how well you represent Penn State University. So that's how we judge it. So it's not a matter of, boy, we want a goaltender that plays this sort of style. We're not that type. So in terms of the evaluation, I think it's the same, but it's obviously a very different situation.
Kind of going off of that, do you anticipate Chris starting early on and then going back to the alternate? Does Peyton have to earn a start before he gets a start?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we have anything that we're committed to, but Chris Funke was brought in here to be a tremendous teammate, a guy that is really mentally tough and can come into games, and he's shown that he can do that. Peyton Jones is a guy that we've identified early that we thought was going to come in and eventually and be a starter. We thought that it would probably happen a year later. We were all surprised with Eamon McAdams signing, but it is what it is. And Peyton has showed that he had a tremendous year last year in the USHL and proved that he is a very good starter, and I'm sure he's going to get the opportunity to show us if he can do that at this level.
You said this morning on the conference call you pulled in someone from the Icers?
We did.
Their goalie?
Yes. His name's Matt Ehrlichman. He knows some of the players. He's a guy that's worked Penn State hockey camps and has the respect of the team as a guy, and I think he's working out very well.
You thought it was important to have a third body in the back?
I do, because we weren't quite positive on the process of if we do have to add a goaltender. And it's not an immediate automatic process. It does take some work. So if something happens on a Friday night and you need someone for Saturday, you're not able to get that done. We needed it done ahead of time, so we had to make that decision now.
You didn't want to put David Goodwin back there?
No.
You were third in the nation with freshman goals last year and fifth in the nation with senior goals. I think when Casey left, the question was who was going to score the goals, but now that you kind of have offense on both ends of that age spectrum, does that help the transition from year to year?
First of all, I didn't know that. I think that that's interesting, because I think we have a very large freshman group coming in, and I would guess that we would have a shot to, I think you said third in the nation. That seems pretty good, and yet I think that if you would ask, we might think that we would do better than that this year. It's possible. It depends how things go. We're not necessarily, we don't have it in our mind where we're going to get the offense. I know with Casey, we talked about it's not just one guy to replace him. Along came two freshmen, Andrew Sturts, Chase Berger, that really put together, between the two of them, I'm certain they replaced Casey and more. That being said, you never really know where it's going to come. I think we're going to be optimistic that they will have great offensive years as well, but I think we're equally optimistic about some of the freshmen that are coming in also.
How excited are you, in particular Andrew Sturts, who came in last year and had a dynamic season? How excited are you for what he can do this season?
You know what, we're excited just to see him. I mean, Andrew Sturts, just seeing him makes you excited. Like, honestly, he doesn't have to score goals to make you excited to see Andrew Sturts. He's that kind of guy. You just love having him in the locker room. The team just can't wait for him to get back on campus. I mean, he's just such a great person to be around. So he doesn't have to score to be a huge part of this team. But that being said, a guy who had 18 goals, I think, last year as a freshman, that's an incredible season. And he also sort of got a taste of what Cam Davidson can do in the weight room, and he's, I think, in the best shape of his life, and it's going to be really exciting to see what he does.
I think everyone's always thought of you guys as to 7th. The defense hasn't gotten inside the top 40 yet in goals allowed, and especially with 2 new goaltenders. Is there more of an emphasis there this year? Because it seems like there were a few times last year with Eamon and Scott were both kind of bailed you out of it at moments.
Absolutely. That's very fair. We are a program that does like to score, and we play that way. We try not to sacrifice defense because of that. I mean, that's a very fair critique of what we do. It's nothing that I still think it's the right way to play. I love the fact that we score a lot of goals. I love the fact that we play to create offense, and sometimes it's not that you want to neglect defense, but sometimes you have to give something back somewhere. It's something that we do want to address and get better and better. That's for sure. That's absolutely true. But it's more in an overall 200-foot game. So when we talk about improving our defensive numbers, it's not necessarily because we're going to give up this less, but it's going to be that we're going to have the puck more. So we're going to have to defend less, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like we're changing things to be more defensive. We just want to become a better 200-foot team that we have control of the puck more. That makes sense.
It seems like from the interviews you've done before today that this freshman class is a higher IQ.
Yes.
And
Yes.
does that play into
Yeah.
ultimately changing this?
Yeah, I mean, as we move forward, we put a lot of thought into what we're going to need in the future and why. And certainly a theme for this coming up class, we knew the size that it was going to be, or we knew it was going to be very large, and we knew what we were losing. We knew what we felt. We knew what we would need to start becoming in the top of the Big Ten and the teams we have to beat. And one of the areas that we felt strongly that we're going to have to improve on is your hockey IQ and your speed and skill, and that's what we've targeted. So I know, we just talked about Nikita. He's a little bit of a different animal, but if you look at a lot of the other players, they all exhibit those characteristics.
How much of that is decreasing some of the penalties? Because it seemed to handicap you guys at times last year.
That's an extremely good question, and if that's something that's been a main priority for the program. So I don't know if you know the statistics, but the amount of power plays that we've had to kill are actually an outlier in the Big Ten. It's a little bit frustrating and confusing because outside of the Big Ten, we're one of the leaders in the nation, and yet inside the Big Ten, we have not found a way to have the same success. And in fact, we're an outlier, and that concerns us greatly. It's nothing we take lightly. It's something, and we're not blaming anybody. We have to find out a way to change that, and we are. We've looked at it. We've broken it down. We will. I hope I can sit here in a few months and say that the work is paying off, and then more so after Christmas as we get into the Big Ten that I can say it's paying off. So it is a main priority for us. I promise you that. We've looked at it a lot. Now it's going to be able to see if it pays off, if we're able to execute what we think.
About his attitude over the past season and having to sit out the whole year and watch the sideline.
Yeah, the coaching staff's always been really happy with him. I mean, you tend to worry about a guy that had one shift and then is forced to sit out, have surgery and then get the news that he's not going to be ready for the end of the year. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough thing. So we were worried about him, but every time that we would ask about him and meet with him, he was a very positive. Just a tremendous guy. And I imagine that's probably very similar to what the team saw. So his attitude's been excellent. He looked at it, I believe, it looked like to us as coaches, he took it as a bit of an opportunity that, no, he wasn't going to play, but he looked at aspects of his body physically that he wanted to change and get stronger, and he did that. So I thought he handled it extremely well.
Trevor Hamilton is a unique case coming in here after playing 2 years in Miami and then going back to juniors. Coming back here, what's his veteran presence, do you think, or have you seen any veteran presence from him among the guys?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, he's one of our new faces, but he's not. He is different. He does bring a veteran presence. Like, you can see how the team responds to him compared to a more traditional freshman. And he had a lot of success. It's not just that he came back. He was a warrior, and everybody knows it. A lot of these guys know each other. A lot of them played in the USHL. They know his reputation as a guy that can play, but a guy who's a warrior. I mean, he's a guy that's played hurt, played played long and deep into the playoffs with injuries, a guy like that. And so that he already had a bit of that moxie coming in here, and you can see he handles himself a little bit differently. I got to add, I mean, I think when you talk about where we're going with our program and what we have to do to get better, I think it's a guy like Trevor Hamilton. We've talked about the importance of moving pucks, but you want to do it both. Like, you want guys that are gritty and tough and can move pucks, and he's a guy that fits in there. Like, he is very cerebral. He's got a high hockey IQ, but he's also tough to play against. That's a unique mix.
Couple more questions for Coach.
Yes, sir.
The Pavlichev and also Smirnov, how did they first get on your radar?
Yeah, believe it or not, they actually played in Pennsylvania. They came over from Russia to play in Wilkes-Barre, and had a lot of success and opened up a lot of eyes. And then they both ended up going to the USHL. So we knew of them when they were just came over, not even before they played junior hockey. They both showed a ton of promise, even back then.
Does their success in Wilkes-Barre sort of make you focus on that area a bit more with the nice program that they have there?
Yeah, I think we always did pay attention to it for sure, but the fact that these players are coming out of it, I think anytime, anywhere, when you get good players coming out of that area, you tend to watch it a little bit more, and that certainly is the case here. And to that point, you know, right now they are yielding some very, very good hockey players. So, yeah, I mean, and we've said it many times before publicly that we want the best players in our footprint, and those two are, even though they're from Russia, they're almost local kids for us, and yeah, it makes us look very closely at that program.
You mentioned a couple of the freshman forwards before, and on the defensive side, losing a guy like Luke, you the moving defenseman, how much do you rely on other sophomores like Kurt?
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's not just as I think there was a question about Casey Bailey last year, who's going to take over those goals. Luke Yuha was our leader in defensive points and one of the leaders in the Big Ten. And I don't think it's fair to ask whether it's Trevor Hamilton or James Govets or Chris Malari saying that's the guy that we need to overtake Luke. But if you look at the years that Vince Pedri had, very excited about Kevin Kerr. You know, all our younger players that are getting more time, I think that they're the ones that are going to replace him, whether it's by committee or even, for instance, an Eric Audio coming into his own, doing something like that. I think it's obviously getting production and puck movement from the back by the loss of Luke is a priority, but we feel good because of all those players that are returning, not just the addition of Trevor and James and Chris, but what we have in terms of them getting better.
Last question for Coach.
Is there a certain excitement level for that? We talked about the defense, but
Yeah.
you look at Pedri and Kerr and those guys
Yeah.
by the end of last year felt like staples and
Yeah.
veterans to a certain extent, but they're only sophomores, right?
Yeah, there is, and I think it's always like that. I mean, keep him coming back to a guy like Kerr, and I think a lot of you noticed that too. Just the way you would say, man, like, boy, he looks comfortable out there. And certainly he was always good. He was always a good player, but there's just a different aura about him, a different the way he carried himself later in the year than he did early. And boy, that's exciting, because if he continues that, he already, some of the games he played last year, I thought he was just a dominant player. Just every time he was on the ice, he was just so in control, and just for hockey educated people, just so fun to watch. He's just so fun to watch. Not always the guy that's on the spotlight to score the huge goal, but just the way he controls the entire game is amazing. So yeah, things like that make us very optimistic.
Right.
Hey, thanks very much for coming.